Guys, today we're going to talk about new centers of civilization. So we're going to look at what's called Western Asia, or we usually refer to it as the Middle East. In particular, the Phoenicians, the Hittites, and then we'll talk about the Jewish states as well. So the role of nomadic people. So another ancient civilization is going to flourish in Central Asia about 4,000 years ago. So about this, a little bit before, about the same time that the ancient Egyptians are existing. This is in where present-day Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan is. So just to the east of the Caspian Sea is where we're talking about. So they built mud brick buildings. They used bronze tools, irrigation, and they probably had writing. Okay, we're pretty sure. But the pastoral nomads lived on the fringes of these civilizations, and they hunted and gathered, and they did small farming, not big farming like in the civilizations. And then they also domesticated animals, and they moved along regular routes to pasture their animals. So they were nomadic in regards to they were constantly looking for places where their animals could eat, basically. So sometimes they got excited and they wanted to take some of what the local communities had. So sometimes they overran those settled communities and then they established their own states. And this is pretty much how the history is going to go for a long time, where there's people and then they're living there, and then there's other people who want to take that over. They just overrun and just take over whatever they want. So one of the most important groups was the Indo-Europeans. Okay, so this is a group of people, not a specific type of person. So this refers to peoples who spoke languages that are derived from the same parent language. So these languages would include Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, and then Germanic languages. We would call these language families. Okay. So one group is going to meld with the natives in Anatolia, which is present-day Turkey. So you can see this right here is Anatolia, and that's the Hittites. Okay, so this is the Hittite kingdom here. And they created an empire from about 1600 to 1200 BC. Their capital city was called Hattusha. It's right here. Okay, and they were the first Indo-Europeans to actually use iron. So we're going to start to move out of the Bronze Age and start to move into the Iron Age. And when their empire was destroyed, smaller city-states and kingdoms are going to emerge in the area of Syria and Palestine. So Syria is like right in here, and then Palestine is right here along the banks of the Mediterranean here. So the Phoenicians were an important new group in the area of Palestine. They lived on a narrow band of the Mediterranean, about 120 miles long. And the Hittites and the Egyptians, after the Hittites and the Egyptians, the Phoenicians are going to take power in that area. And then they are going to base their economy on trade. They were very, very good traders. And they were so good because they were very good sailors. Okay, so they built very good ships and had good seafaring skills. And they even went all the way as far as Britain. So that's all the way around the Mediterranean and then up through the Atlantic Ocean to get to Britain and Africa's west coast. So once again, they went all the way through the Mediterranean and then down south in the Atlantic. So they're going to start to set up colonies. One of these colonies is going to be Carthage. Carthage is in North Africa. It's where present-day Tunisia is. And it was their most important colony. And this is going to become a very big empire, the Carthaginian Empire. And we'll talk more about them when we get into ancient Rome, okay? But the thing that the Phoenicians are really most known for is the alphabet, okay? So they're the first ones to use an alphabet instead of using pictures or symbols to represent ideas. They start to use symbols to represent sounds, okay, which is what we use, okay? And so they could spell out all the words in the Phoenician language. And this is going to then go to the Greeks and then the Romans, and then eventually it will be what our alphabet is. So our 26 letters is based on this, okay? So that's why there's a program called Hooked on Phonics, okay? That comes from the Phoenicians. So this right here is a video that kind of explains the Phoenician alphabet. All right, so that's kind of the Phoenician alphabet, and I did like the thing at the end where it talked about the first two letters, Aleph and Beth, eventually become Alpha and Beta, and that's where we get the name alphabet. So, so the children of Israel. So the Israelites were a Semitic people that lived in Palestine, and that is where present-day Israel is. And they emerged around 1200, about 1000 BC. And they soon established a kingdom known as Israel. Okay, the capital was Jerusalem. And their main contribution to history is their religion. So Judaism is still a major religion today, but it is going to bring along eventually Christianity and then also Islam as well. So these are called Abrahamic religions because Abraham is said to have started Judaism. So King Solomon, he's going to rule from about 970 to 930 BC. He was Israel's first great king. He was definitely known for his wisdom, so wise King Solomon. But the most important thing he did was he built the temple in Jerusalem. Now that's gone now. It's no longer there. But there's still the Temple Mount. And Israelites viewed this temple as a symbolic center of Israel as well as Judaism. This is right here what that would have looked like. Okay. So after Solomon, the kingdom divided into two parts. You had the kingdom of Israel that had, that had 10 tribes, and then the kingdom of Judah, which had 2 tribes. Okay, and then in 772, the Assyrians conquered and scattered the 10 tribes. So these are known as the 10 lost tribes of Israel, and they lost their Hebrew identity as a result. And so really, what you're left with is the kingdom of Judah and Simeon. So that's these two right here. Okay, this is what you're left with. And the Chaldeans are going to conquer Assyria and the kingdom of Judah, and then they're going to destroy Jerusalem in 586 BC. And then the Persians are going to conquer the Chaldeans, and the people of Judah were allowed to return back to Jerusalem. Okay. And then the kingdom of Judah was reborn, and then the temple was rebuilt. Okay. So the people of Judah survived even conquest by Alexander the Great, and eventually they're going to be known as the Jews. So this is they give their name to Judaism. So that's where we get that from. Now, Judaism is a monotheistic religion. That means they believe in one God only. Okay, and that God is named Yahweh. And they believe that he created and ruled the world. They believe he's not in nature, not so like he's not like a sun. He's not represented by like the sun or the earth or anything like that. That natural phenomena were not divine. They were something that he created. and that all people were Yahweh's servants, not just a certain tribe or certain nation. That all people, no matter what race or creed or whatever you are still Yahweh's servant. So 3 important aspects of Judaism are the covenant, the law, and the prophets. So the covenant is the promise, okay? That's the agreement between God and his people. And so it's important for the people to fulfill the covenant by obeying the law of God. So that is stated in what's called the 10 Commandments. And then the Jews believed that religious teachers or prophets were sent by God in order to spread Judaism. And they believed that unjust actions could bring about God's punishment. So, for example, Isaiah expressed concern for all humanity in the hope that someday all people would follow the law of God of Israel in a time of peace. He thought that people would show compassion to one another and that they would care for justice and the condition of the poor and the unfortunate. Okay, so he was hoping that that would someday happen. Okay. So the religion of Israel was unique among the religions of Western Asia and Egypt, and the biggest thing is that it's monotheistic. Okay, all the other peoples who are around that, they were all polytheistic. So we just got done talking about the Egyptians. Obviously, they had a lot of different gods. The surrounding people were very similar. So their ideas were written down. That's another big difference. And people besides priests and rulers could have religious knowledge and know God's will. That's because they wrote them down. And so the Jews also would not accept the gods or goddesses of their neighbors. And that's something they're going to be very stringent on all throughout history. They will not accept any other god. In fact, that's one of the 10 Commandments. All right, that's it, and I hope you all have a good day. Don't forget to do your processor.